What's going on, Raiders? Duelim here, and today we're going to be talking about Sacred Shards once again and the next phase of the 25x progressive chance, just like we talked about yesterday. But now we have a different pool of champions, and we're going to talk about if it's worth it or not to use your Sacred Shards on this pool. So if you're ready, let's get into it. But first, make sure you're clicking that download link or scanning the QR code to get Karato Fox Hunter. The second you start the game, an amazing legendary nuker. At level 10, you're going to be getting Tagore, an amazing epic support character. At level 20, you're going to be getting Fane, who's got some incredible turn meter steal, as well as some pretty crazy damage. And then at level 30, you're going to be getting Vergus, who's a defense-based champion, to help keep your other characters alive. And then this is super important. Day number 1 within the first 24 hours of making your Raid Shadow Legends account. Type in promo code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong, one of the best free legendaries they have ever given. And if you're on iOS, make sure you're clicking a different link in the description to type in any promo codes. All right, let's get right into it. So we have Sacred Shards. We also have a different progressive chance for Void Shards. But we're going to talk about the Sacreds first. So let's come in here and let's look at the progressive chance here. And there are 5 characters here. And the first one I noticed was going to be Rhodos, because Rhodos is very, very good. There's a companion champion with Siphi. Rhodos is extremely, extremely strong. All of these characters as well have something to do with an extra turn, whether it's on kill, on a passive, or on like their A1 at a low % chance, something like that. So that's kind of the pool that we have here. So for Rhodos, very, very good. Again, we talked about the 25% chance of granting an extra turn. Attacks one enemy, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased debuff for 2 turns. Really, really good for an A1. The A2 attacks one enemy, destroys the target's max HP by 20%, and then adds that HP to the champion's own max HP, which is really, really cool. He can get it up to a 60,000 max HP increase, and then against bosses, it's a 25% of that, so it's only 15,000, but still really, really interesting. Booked down to a 2-turn cooldown, so he's gonna get tanky real fast, which is really interesting. A very unique kit there. I really like it. I also like the destroy max HP. You can't do it more than 60%, but still very, very interesting there. The A3, Fated Destruction, attacks one enemy, will ignore 60% of the target's defense, will ignore unkillable and block damage. Amazing right there. Amazing, amazing. Ignoring unkillable and block damage and ignoring 60% of the target's defense. Absolutely insane. And then if it's ascended, enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. This champion has gained max amount of HP from Vitality Plunder, which is the A2. It also grants an extra turn if this skill kills an enemy. So this is kind of the A2's kind of the soften up ability. The A3 is the delete button, and then you get the extra turn, and then you'll most likely have the A2 up again because it's only a 2-turn cooldown, and then you'll be able to kind of go back and forth on that. It'd be really, really nice. Then for the passive, will decrease the damage from enemy hits so that incoming damage from a single hit will not exceed 50% of this champion's max HP. Grants an extra turn if this damage reduction occurs. This is insane in Arena. This is really, 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 really good. It doesn't work against bosses. Decreases the damage taken from bosses by 15% and decreases the damage taken by bosses by 30% if Siphi, again, Siphi, the companion champion there, is on the same team. So Rhodos, very, very good. One of the better characters in this game. I know at Hell Hades, he's ranked like a 4, but he's really, really good. And mostly it's because of this A2 that is absolutely insane. Gaining max HP based on the damage that he's doing. Also, destroying max HP is really, really nuts, especially because that's an artifact set. Like, that's a set. So that's pretty nuts. Next up, let's talk about First Axe Tuskor. And he looks kind of bad, but he's actually not bad, honestly. So his A1 attacks one enemy 2 times. Pretty good for Fire Knight. Has a 25% chance of granting an extra turn. Again, like we talked about. The A2 attacks all enemies. The damage inflicted by this skill increases by 10% for each buff on this champion. So very, very cool. Going along with people like Elva Autumnborn or Duchess, like I have on my team, get 30%, 40%, 50% extra damage for this ability. Really awesome. Decreases the cooldown of this skill by 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. If this attack kills 2 or more enemies, grant this champion an extra turn instead. So that's really nice if you're killing some people. That's pretty strong. Now for the A3, First Axe Fury. Attack 1 enemy 2 times. Before attacking, places a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. Ignores shield buffs, which is nuts. That's really, really good. And then grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy as well. So really, really good here. If you can do the A3, get all of these buffs out there, then the A2, you get all of the extra damage from having the buffs from the A3, plus having some potential more buffs from support characters, what have you. This can really hit hard. That's pretty nice. And then each turn, this is the passive. Each extra turn, this champion increases their crit damage by 10%, stacks up to 50%, which is really, really good. And then each extra turn this champion gets also decreases the damage they receive by 5%, stacks up to 50%. So this guy is really, really good. He's got an okay aura, 30% attack in all battles, nothing wrong with that. But this guy is really good in like clan boss, pretty good in Hydra as well because he's attacking all enemies with the A2. And then he's getting some multi-hits with the A1 and the A3. So pretty good against Hydra, decent in Fire Knight as well. He just does some pretty good damage, so he's not bad at all. Next up, we got Mountain King. This guy has a beard for the ages, and I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's go to the A1. Thundercleave attacks 1 enemy, fills his champion turn meter by 10%. Fills by an additional 2% for each buff on the target. So if you're attacking into a big buff team, he's going to get extra turn meter, which is pretty great. Nothing wrong with that. The A2, Enchanted Axe, attacks 1 enemy, will ignore 50% of the target's defense, and grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Ignoring defense is nuts. That is really, really strong, especially when it's baked into an ability. That is absolutely insane. The A3 Regal Force attacks 1 enemy, will ignore shield, strength, and unkillable ally protection and block damage buffs. Amazing already. Decreases the cooldown of Enchanted Axe. That's going to be the A2. Skill by 2 turns if this attack kills an enemy. So you soften them up with the A2, ignoring that defense. Then you go to the A3, get that kill, and then the A2 can come back up a lot faster because you're reducing the cooldown by 2 turns if that A3 gets a kill. Now, for the passive, Fabled skill increases this champion's attack by 50% each time if this champion kills an enemy, stacks up to 100%. So that's twice, right? It's 2 stacks, but still, doubling your attack percent in a fight is kind of nuts. He's also immune to decrease attack and block active skill buffs, which is also very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that in a kit before. Obviously, there's a lot of characters in this game, so I'm learning a bunch. But yeah, this is very, very cool. It makes him very, very strong, especially if you're going against Hydra, you're taking out some heads. He is going to be hitting very hard. But he's a lot of single target is the only thing. So that's the only kind of downfall of him. He's single target and he's only a single hitter, but he's still pretty good. I'd still probably give him like a 4-ish most likely. Now we got Uzol of the Jade. He's pretty good. I think he's like a 4.5 on Hell Hades, which I agree with. Ruthless Axemaster attacks 1 enemy, has a 20% chance of granting an extra turn. If this attack kills an enemy, grant extra turn. A2 Stonehearted attacks all enemies. Before attacking, reduces the value of any shield buffs on all enemies by 100%. So that's nuts immediately against shields. Really, really good. And places a 60% decrease debuff on them for 2 turns. These effects cannot be resisted if this skill was used on an extra turn. So very, very interesting. This guy is very cool because it's very dependent on if you have the extra turn or not, and if you want to use this, if they have shield buffs, if you want that decreased defense, because the A3 has something like that as well. So it has a 20% extra chance, 20% chance of gaining an extra turn. This chance increases by 10% for each critical hit. So if you're getting 4 crits, obviously that's going to bring it up to 60% chance of an extra turn, which is great. And then the A3 Royal Fury attacks 1 enemy, will ignore shield, block damage, and unkillable. Also ignores Stone Skin, which is everywhere in Arena, obviously, and 100% of the target's defense if this skill was used on an extra turn or an instant turn. So this alone is insane, being able to ignore Stone Skin, especially if the A2 gets a kill, and then you get that extra turn. And you get an extra turn, and then you go right into the A3 with an extra turn as well. That's absolutely insane. Just ignoring 100% of the target's defense can absolutely shred somebody. Really, really cool. Passive Jade King, if an ally has a chance to gain an extra turn, increase that chance by an additional 5%. If there's multiple of this, only one will activate. This champion deals 25% more damage on extra turns. So you're taking 25% extra damage, plus 100% ignore target's defense, ignoring Stone Skin. Absolutely, absolutely nuts damage if you're really getting those extra turns. Relentless Screams on this guy is what I'm looking at right here, to be able to get those extra turns from the Relentless set. Just absolutely insane. And this guy looks really cool as well. His head kind of looks like a paintbrush, but I won't hold that against him. And then last up for the Sacreds, we've got Wallmaster Othorion. Yeah. He's probably the best out of all of them here, I'd say. Yeah, he's probably the best. So let's go to the A1. Skyfall Arrows attacks all enemies. This attack will not trigger counterattacks. Fills this champion's turn meter by 5% for each living enemy after the attack. So 20% turn meter fill if you're going against like Hydra. Really, really good there. The A2, Falcon Shot. We've got attacks all enemies 2 times. The first hit has a 75% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. The second hit has a 75% chance, booked up to 100% chance, both of these, of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. Fills this champion's turn meter by 5% for each living enemy after the attack. Again, really, really great in Hydra, because that's another 20% turn meter right there. Now for the A3, this is really, really nice too. Places a 50% increased attack buff, 50% increase accuracy buff, and a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn, booked down to a 4-turn cooldown. This is disgusting. This is so good, especially because you want to get these buffs out here, so you're getting that increased accuracy, and then that's mainly for the A2 there for the increased accuracy, because there's nothing for the A1, right? There's nothing here. It's just the turn meter that you're gaining, which can't be resisted by yourself, right? And then the passive No Foe 2, great. Increases this champion's max HP by 20% for each enemy killed or Hydra head decapitated by this champion. So 20% max HP is kind of nuts. It goes up to 50,000 health. So kind of like Rhodos a little bit, right? Max up to 60,000 health. But Rhodos against bosses can only do 15,000. This guy gets it up to 50,000 health, which is really, really, really good. The only issue with this is he does have to kill the person, all right? He has to kill the Hydra head or the enemy champion, right? So you got to make sure he's doing the final blow, but you won't have much of an issue when you've got the increased attack, taking a lot of extra turns. The big hit AoE for 2-hitter, the big hit AoE here. He's going to be taking a lot of turns. He is by far the best on this, out of this pick here. And overall, for Sacreds, I would say for this, don't bother, unfortunately, because they don't have the buy one, get one free as well running with this. That was the big thing about yesterday and why it was so worth it to end up pulling those Sacred Shards, because not only was the progressive chance there, but they also had that buy one, get one free of getting the extra legendary. So whenever you see progressive chance like this, they always put great champions here, but you got to remember, 25 times a very, very, very low number is still a very, very, very low number. So your chances of getting the exact legendary you want is not as good as it makes it out to seem here, because you got to remember there's a lot of legendaries in this game. So it's kind of a trap. It's kind of a bait. So be very, very cautious when you do something like this. I do not recommend it, especially when sacred shards are so hard to come by. Now, we also do have a different progressive chance for void shards. I think it's the same for ancients. It is the same for ancients, and then I'm 99% sure it's the same for primals. It is, but I know voids are different. So there's 3 champions in void here, and all 3 of these champions are really, really good as well. So on Ryu, on Ryo, I think Ieyasu, I was gonna, yeah, no, I'm not gonna try. All right, this guy's really, really good. So the A1 Exorcism Cutter attacks 1 enemy 2 times, places an extra hit if the target is under a buff, places 2 extra hits if the target is under a buff and is from the Undead Hordes faction, grants an extra turn if this gets a kill. Really, really nice here. So a 2-hitter automatically can be up to a 4-hitter if they're from the Undead Horde. So really good there. I think Rhodos is Undead Horde, so going into him, since we talked about him. The A2, Violent Petrification, attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Before each hit, destroys the target's max HP by 10%, stacks up to 50%. Doesn't work against bosses, though. And the damage inflicted by this skill by 10% for each buff and debuff on the target. So if you've got a lot of buffs or debuffs, like if you're working on clan boss, if you are got a lot of poisons out there, you got a lot of burns, you're using like Geomancer, and you're using Ugo, and you got decreased defense, block buffs, weaken, burns, all that kind of stuff, that's all increasing the damage by 10% per buff and debuff on the target as well. So using some of their buffs against them. If the target is killed by the skill, places a block revive buff. That's always really nice. Revives are very annoying. A3, Final Vengeance, attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Will ignore 50% of the target's defense, as well as stone skin, shield, and strengthen buffs. And there's no nothing like that you need to make this work. Like, it doesn't need to be on an extra turn like Uzul was. This just happens. You're ignoring stone skin. You're ignoring 50% defense, shield buff, strengthen. This is really, really nice. And if you have enough damage on this, you could really delete somebody off rip. Now, for the passive, we've got whenever this champion attacks, all enemies except the initial target receive 25 per equal receive damage equal to 25% of the damage dealt to the initial target. So if you're doing 100,000 damage to the initial target, the other 3 targets will receive 25,000 damage, which is really, really nice. This extra damage will ignore 100% of each enemy's defense. The extra damage cannot be critical and will not trigger counterattacks. This is nuts in Hydra here. This is really, really, really good in Hydra because AoE damage. Obviously, you're stuck hitting when there's provokes, when the redirect attacks and stuff like that. This is really, really nice for that. This guy's really good for Hydra. He also looks pretty cool too. I love the like the knife in his mouth here. He looks awesome. So he's very, very good. I give him like a 4.5 probably. He's very good. Gorgid, the Breaker. This guy looks really foolish. He actually looks kind of cool. I love the head turning around. He's really good as well, especially as A2. So let's start off with the A1, Breaker Suite. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Has a 30% chance of repeating the attack. So that's really nice automatically. And if the 30% chance of repeating the attack means he's going to hit 4 times, because it's attack 1 enemy 2 times. If he repeats it, that's another 2 times. So that's a pretty nice, a quad hitter potentially. The A2, March of Tin, attacks all enemies, decreases the turn meters of all targets by 30%, and it cannot be resisted. This is insane in something like Fire Knight, where you need to get those rewinds to make sure the Fire Knight boss is not taking a turn. This is insane. This is so good, especially the fact that it can't be resisted means you don't need accuracy on him, and then you don't need accuracy for the A1, and then for the A3, guess what? You also don't need accuracy. So really, really nice there. Also places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn if this attack kills an enemy. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now for the A3, Deadly Ballet. I read that as Ballette when I was looking at these champions ahead of time, by the way, so don't make fun of me. But yeah, I read that as Deadly Ballette, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, and then I realized I'm just an idiot. So yeah, attacks 1 enemy, will ignore Strengthen, Stone Skin, Unkillable, block damage, increased defense, ally protection, and shield buffs, and it grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. Soften them up with the A2, delete them with the A3, get that extra hit. And then you're going in with the A1 because you're going to get that extra turn as well. Just a really, really cool kit here. And then we got the passive here, Crack Any Shell. Has a 50% chance for this champion to ignore 50% of the target's defense for each hit placed by this champion's skills. So technically, you have 50% chance to ignore 50% of the defense, and then you're ignoring all of these defense buffs that could be potentially on an enemy that when you're attacking into them. Absolutely, absolutely nuts. He's very, very good in arena. I've run into him a couple times, and he's soloed my entire team. He's gone faster, or he's just survived, and then his A2 will rewind me, and then he's got the unkillable buff, and then his A3 will delete me. So yeah, he's very, very good, and he's very cool. He's awesome. I'd give him like probably a 4, just because he's not as useful well-roundedly as the others, but he's still very, very good. Now, for Arnorn, last up here in the Void Shards, this guy is one of the most annoying champions. If you saw the video I did with Kat, you know how I feel about this guy. He is very cool, mainly for one reason and one reason only, his passive, and we'll get into it. But yeah, the A1 Shining Cleave attacks one enemy 2 times. Damage increases by 5% for each buff on the target. Each hit has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Amazing. Potential stun debuff. 2-hitter at a 35% chance. I don't know what that math is when you have 2 chances at a 35% chance. But yeah, not bad. And it goes up to a 50% chance. So that's pretty impressive. I like that. That's really cool, especially on an A1, potentially stunning. That's really good. Next up, Glimmer Force, the A2, attacks one enemy 2 times. The damage inflicted by this skill increases by 10% for each 10% HP this champion has lost. So really, really getting into like a rage mechanic. The lower he gets, the stronger he gets, which is really interesting. If this target is under 2 or more buffs, we'll also ignore 35% of the target's defense, which is really, really nice. Grants an extra turn. This attack kills an enemy. One thing that's interesting about this as well, for the books, it's damage, then a cooldown, then damage, then a cooldown. Because usually it's like damage, 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 and then cooldown, cooldown at the end. So it's kind of staggered, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but thought I'd just talk about it. They do the same thing on his A3 as well. Odd. Wrath of Hrothgleim, I think. Don't butcher me. All right, attacks all enemies. Will ignore increased defense, strengthen, and shield buffs. Also very nice here. If this attack kills at least one enemy, decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 50% and cannot be resisted. This is nuts in like Spider, because you're going to be killing a lot of the Spiderlings, increasing the turn meter of enemies by 50%. It's an AoE as well. This is a really, really great ability. And the best part about him is the passive, activating the A3. So the passive effect of his passive is increase the champion's attack by 5% for each active buff on the enemy team. The active effect prevents this champion's death and keeps them alive on 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit. Places Stone Skin buff on them for 1 turn, then instantly activates Wrath of Hrothgleim, the A3. This will not place the A3 on cooldown. So he is going to drop to 1 HP, so you can't delete him, you can't one-shot him, and then he's getting Stone Skin, and then it's activating the A3, doing that big damage, potentially killing somebody, rewinding turn meter of enemies by 50%. Absolutely insane. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, this effect will only activate once. So this guy is so good because of this. It's so cool. If you ever see him in arena, you're like, oh, cool, solo. I can kill him in arena. He's going to be dead. You hit him with like an Alice A3 when they've got defense down. And guess what? He just survives at 1 HP, and then he deletes your team with the activation of the A3. And then he takes the turn and then uses his A3 and then hits you with it twice because it doesn't put it on cooldown. He is really, really good. I would say he's probably one of the better. I'd say he's probably the second best here. I'd say Ieyasu is the best here because he can be used all around. Now, when it comes to the Void Shards here, I do like these better, but again, still a progressive chance. your odds of getting these exact characters that you want are so low. So be very, very cautious when you're doing this. I never recommend pulling for progressive chance events, just because I do not like the odds. I'd rather wait for 2x legendary drop chance or the buy one, get one free legendary chance, because you got to remember, for voids, you have a 0.5% chance, a 0.5% chance. That's a 1 in 200 of pulling a legendary without the mercy system, right? And then you're also feeding into, you want the exact champion you want. So it's very, very difficult. Now, I will say the odds are better for voids because you can only pull void legendaries, right? And most of the void legendaries you're going to pull, I wouldn't say most, I'd say a good, like, I don't know, 60% of the void legendaries you pull are going to be pretty serviceable, at least pretty serviceable. So there is that. But again, progressive chance is definitely a hard sell for me. So that's my thoughts on the current progressive chance pulls right now. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. And when you're down there, make sure you are clicking on the download link to get started the best way possible in Raid Shadow Legends. 3 legendaries, 3 epics, the best way ever. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Until next time, this has been Duelim. Later, Raiders.